Welcome back to Living in My Mind. This is going to be a fun episode. We talk about a lot of different things on here when it comes to mental health and the aspects of life and everything. And what we did is we've had a lot of text messages and people have called in, given us thoughts and ideas and asking questions. So what I thought I'd do, I'd take the top 15, 20 questions that people ask, see if I can answer them. I've not read them. My producer, Mark, is going to read them off to me and see how well we can answer them and what we might be able to do for someone. But yes, you can always, send us a text. The number's at the end of the show. You can call. You can participate. Whatever we can do for you, we definitely will. All right, what do we got going?
All right, a lot of really good questions here. Super deep questions. So, first question is: can you describe the first time you realized that you were facing a mental health challenge?
When I was really young, after I've looked back and been to all the therapy, it was when I was really young, to be honest with you. I come from a family, many families, food is very important. And I remember when I was younger how my family, my grandmother or my aunts and everybody say, well, you got to eat, if not hungry. They'd say, well, you not love me. Not realizing in their time, in their generation, it didn't mean anything to them. But as I sat, it really made me feel as if I don't please somebody else. Then I'm not going to love them. They're not going to think I love them. They're not going to love me, and I'm going to hurt them. And so I've got to give up my identity for them. And this was when I was 7 years old. I'll never forget it. It was at my aunt's, real into California. And it was a statement that stuck with me. And all these years I tried to say it's okay, but I realized it set me into a place to where I had to please other people, because then I thought they're not going to like me, especially if it was my grandma. My whole life, she never said anything bad to me. My grandma was an amazing lady, but I took it one way, and then that made me realize that it started then. Then I looked at the way I behaved. I looked at my interactions with people. I looked at becoming a people pleaser and realized up until my adulthood, that stuck with me, and I needed you or someone to like me to feel validated. And it was tough, but it was an eye-opening a moment for me. And a lot of therapy got me to realize that was a moment. Because what happens with a lot of us, if we deal with trauma, we push it down, or we think it didn't actually happen, or we make excuses for the person that might have been part of it, or we say, oh, I'm fine now. But the reality is we're not. That's why we have to keep working on things.
Interesting. So there was a moment during your therapy sessions or through the therapy sessions that you kind of unlocked that moment?
Yeah. The person said, think about this, here's your behavior, when do you, and then I realized when it started.
Wow. Yeah. So interesting. All right. So number 2, how has your perception of mental health evolved over the years?
It's a difficult question, a great question, but if you're not aware of things, you're not aware. I lived a lifestyle where I wasn't aware of, let's put it this way. I didn't allow myself to be aware of what was real. I was aware of what I wanted, not always what I needed, about what I wanted. I was very selfish, very me, because I didn't want to hear other people's opinion. I didn't want to hear what they had to offer. But when I slowed down, I started working with a therapist. I started being honest with myself. I realized that a lot of the negative things in my life came from my mental health issues. When they first diagnosed me with bipolar, I went to see a different therapist. You've got to make a mistake. You've got to be wrong. Then I realized I needed to look at what the symptoms are and the behaviors, and I fit it perfectly. But then again, I wanted to deny it because at night, to this day, a lot of nights, I cry myself to sleep at night. I wake up crying. I have horrible dreams, horrific nightmares. And so over the years, I've realized it's okay. When I didn't want to be dealing with reality and I didn't want to admit that I had a problem, that's where it was hell. Now I look back and I think, okay, now I know why this happened. Now I know why I acted that way. Now I know why I did this. I see it. It's never too late to change. There's times where I get angry. I'm like, I wish I could have noticed this earlier. I wish I would have listened to people earlier. But I had to go through this journey, no matter how hard it was, no matter how hard it is, no matter how hard it will be. But over the years, it just took time for me to realize that this is the truth. No one likes to be told you have mental health issues. It's a stigma. Sadly, it's a stigma. And the reality is, you got to wear anything you have as a badge of honor. Use it to the best of your ability, because if you're helping yourself, you're helping others. And the life that you live is so much better when you accept it. And that's what happened for me, and it continues. And I'm praying to God that it stays this way and only gets better. But again, that all depends on me, not another person.
Absolutely. All right. So number 3, what has been the most significant obstacle you faced in managing your mental health?
Me. I'm my own obstacle. I've allowed myself in my life, and many people who have obstacles will say it's a person, it's a job, it's a situation that happened. Could be. Remember, those people are part of our life. Mine has been me, denying the truth about myself, denying what I want to do in life, denying what I like in life. You know, you listen to religion, you listen to family, you listen to people you meet, and you want to fit in, you want to do everything right, you want to be not that person that goes against the grain. Well, I've always gone against the grain. Then I realized at some point in my early 30s that I like who I am. I never loved who I was, but I liked who I was. And I did my own thing. I did my own beat, so to speak. But I realized that the obstacle was always in me. Anything I've done, I had a conversation the other day with someone, whatever I've succeeded in, I've made it happen. No one's given me a damn thing. They haven't. I've made it happen. To this day, people I work with, no one comes to me and says, hey, we got a project, we got something for you to do. It's always, what can you do for me to help this work? But my stuff I've done, but I've now put myself in situations where I work with amazing people. We can work hand in hand. They put 50% in, I put 50%. It's never one or the other now in a few situations. But I've been my biggest obstacle, denying myself, lying to myself, staying in my addictions because they feel so good. It's interesting. I've taken cold showers 2 a day for the last 30-something years. And the other day I was having a discussion with someone. I tried to explain. I said, okay, here's how it works. I hit that shower, sweet Jesus, Mary, Mother of God, and everybody out there, I'm awake. It's there. I take a warm shower. It's comforting. It's nurturing. It's relaxing. Now, if I'm tired, it's like going to bed. Go to bed one night and don't put any blankets on. You'll freeze to death sometimes. You can't sleep. You put the blankets on. That's what it's like in life when you have an addiction, like me with the sex, the food, the gambling. That was my blanket. Now I get a cold slap in the face with reality because I have people in my life who are going to tell me what they think. And I'm still my own obstacle. I'm still my own worst enemy. Some cliches, well, every cliche is true to many degrees because they come from someplace. But I've learned to deal with it. And every day I struggle to be honest with myself because I'm the main obstacle. And if I choose the right ones, success is here every day. If I choose the wrong ones, it's not an easy day, but I can get through it. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Number 4, can you share a moment or experience that was a turning point in your mental health journey?
Here's a good one. It's a simple one because if you're taking care of yourself and you're continuously getting better, you're going to have a lot of moments. But in 1994, I went into treatment for an eating disorder. I tried 3 different places. The first one I went to, it closed down in 72 hours. This was in Northern California. I freaking had a heart attack. My mother and a friend of mine at that time picked me up. I'll never forget. We went to a place called Lions. This was in Walnut Creek, California. I ordered every appetizer, and I sat there and ate every appetizer. That was comforting to me. So got me into another facility. I'm sitting across, and pardon me for saying it this way, but this is how you have to perceive it if you're me. I'm sitting across from a nurse. She was over 300 pounds. We're talking because she was doing the admit. And I had this look on my face, obviously, and she said, what's the matter? And I looked at her and I said, I'm a little fucking confused. This is pardon me. I said, look at you and look at me. She goes, but you know the difference between you and I, Dennis? And I said, what? She goes, I love me and you hate you. That is something I've thought about every day of my life. Because that's the truth. The hate that many of us have for ourselves because we think we're losers. We think we can't accomplish someone. We compare ourselves to our family members. We compare ourselves to what everybody else wants, to social media, to frickin' religion, to politicians, every rule out there. Set your own rules that you can guide yourself through that are going to benefit you. But that is the one moment that it just hit me so freaking hard. And she said it so lovingly, so caringly. I kept in contact with that lady for almost 20-something years. And I'll never forget her because that's the first time anybody had the decency to tell me. But that was the one thing that made me realize that my journey started that day.
All right. How do you approach conversations about mental health with friends and family?
I never intrude. I will always talk about things in a roundabout way. If I know someone's dealing with something, I'll have a conversation, say, I just spoke with a client today. I'll give the description of that client, and actually it's the person sitting in front of me. I never want them to think that it's about them. If they're smart, they'll realize, hey, this is about me. But you never want to be accusatory. You never want to go up to somebody and say, hey, you've got this problem, you have that. I talk about things. I let people know about my past. I let them what I go through honestly on a day-to-day basis. That's an attraction to people because then they know that there's someone like them. They know there's someone, they're not alone. Like somebody said to me the other day, one of the episodes I said recently, I said, look, there's a pretty good chance if I'll probably take my own life. Now, that's a possibility. And the person said, well, do you want to put that out there? I said, it's the truth. I have no problem saying that. Now, I'm praying to God it doesn't happen, but I know my issues sometimes are more than I can handle. I've got wonderful people who help keep me from doing that, but I don't know. So I deal day to day. I deal with what I do deal with. I think about it daily. Right now I'm sitting here. But what I do with people who I listen to them. See, there's a big difference. You can listen to somebody and not hear a word they say because you're thinking about what are you going to say next. That drives me nuts. I listen, I hear, and I let them tell me what they need to tell me and then ask me what they need to ask. Many times I'll meet people and they'll say, well, you ever do this? You ever feel this way? That opens up a door. But I don't ever want anybody to feel uncomfortable. I don't want anybody to ever think that they're being judged because the bottom line is we judge ourselves enough. So that's how I do it personally.
All right. What coping strategies or treatments have you found most effective for your mental health?
We all need tools. I mean, there's terms they use in treatment and all that stuff. We all need coping strategies. What I do is I exercise because getting those endorphins going, it makes me feel good. I get up in the morning, 3:30. I got an hour, 20-minute floor exercise. I combine Pilates and something called Legree. And then I have a few kettlebells. I go for walks. Well, that makes my day start off really good. Then if I'm having a bad time, I'll go for a walk during the day. That causes me to calm down. I will work on my cognition. I'll work on a program that I have called Unlimited Cognition. You can find out more about that if you're interested in sending a text message or an email. And what that does, our cognitive issues, it's the way in which the brain makes connections to order to remember what is learned. So I've learned a lot of bad habits, and I've unlearned them by doing some things with my project. And I surround myself with good people. I choose to do what I want. I live a lifestyle that many people, I'm 62 years old. I live by myself. I enjoy life. I spend time. I have a wonderful time with individuals, but I enjoy it. I don't conform to you need to be married. You need to date someone this age. You need to date someone that age. You got to. I don't do that stuff. That's just not me. I eat very well, and that's an important thing for me. I eat what I like. Having an eating disorder, there's always been that thing, well, gee, I'm out to dinner with you guys. You have pizza. I'd love to eat pizza. Well, I can't eat pizza. Yeah, you can. No, you can't. I mean, Jesus, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and fucking, every crazy person in my head goes off. I finally realized I'm not like other people. I have to eat what works for me. So many people say, well, gee, I wish I could do that. Or, gee, I could wish I could do this or that. You can wish all you want. I've had 40 years of the same thing over Groundhog's Day, the Bill Murray movie. I lived that life, the same shit over and over because I allowed it to happen. So I take care of myself that way. I go to movies. I read. I write. I do things that are creative for me. I truly believe the greatest books, the greatest movies, the greatest plays, the greatest poetry, none of us will ever see because people didn't write it for anything but for themselves. That's an amazing gift that many people have. And so I also realize I don't seek validation from anybody. I live in fear at times, to be honest, because with work, you never know if someone's going to say, we don't want you, because I've always got that thing, well, they didn't call me, they didn't do that. Then I realized I didn't do anything. So there's no need to. So you still have that residual stuff that you go through, but I find the things that just make me feel good, and I do them, and I make sure that whatever makes me feel good, I'm not taking away from another person. That's an important thing. And I'm honest about people, about what I want, when I want, how I want. And I'm still learning, but those are the things that help me get through the day.
All right. Number 7, have you ever faced stigma or misconceptions about your mental health, and how did you handle it?
It's interesting. I didn't know I had an eating disorder because I was told men don't have eating disorders. So in 1994, I went into a rehab center. No longer exists, thank God, because the people that created it, a lot of damage to people. I go and I'm doing an interview, and this doctor looks at me and he's like, well, Mr. Henning, are you gay? And I said, no, sir. And he's like, well, why are you here? I'm sorry, it's an eating disorder program. He goes, Mr. Henning, the only men that have eating disorders are gay men. Well, by that time, the research was that. So there's a huge stigma that men couldn't come out and talk about it. Men couldn't talk about body images. Men didn't have these issues. Now, I didn't realize there was mental issues with it. It was just my obsession with food, and I learned that it started when I was younger because it satisfied and fulfilled everything. And then God gave me the trifecta: food, gambling, and sex. Vegas is like the Holy Bible to me, the Holy Grail. And so that made me realize that if I talk about it, people have asked me questions my whole life. Are you gay? No. Well, you look a certain way. You take care of yourself. You're not married. What's that got to have to do with someone's sexuality? It doesn't work that way. The stigma is you're a man. You shouldn't feel these things. Men still face this stigma. Stigma, pardon me. It doesn't matter your race, your religion, your culture, how much money you have. Maybe over the last 10 years, it's been more acceptable. Men are talking more. Men are allowed to. There are women that I dated in the past when they found out I had eating disorders, they're like, that's not masculine. Well, who the frick said it was masculine? Or you're weak. I've had that said to me many times. You're a weak-minded person because you have a mental health issue or you have the eating disorder. It just takes a little bit of restraint. Really? It takes a restraint. What I love about the addiction field is 99% of the people that are going to tell me what I need to do, behind the scene, they're doing what they shouldn't be doing. I think that's the way it is in life. Many people want to tell somebody how to live and what they've got to do. You go home, they've got their dark secrets. Like I really believe, and I know this, if people are smart, they're going to go to their deathbed with secrets no one will ever know. I know I have a few, never will ever share them with anybody in the world because they're mine. It's about the only thing I have. But that's the stigma that you're insecure, you think you're ugly, you don't think your body's decent enough, you don't think you're good at anything. And us men go through that. I don't care what anybody says, us men go through that. To this day, we have doubts. I have doubts. Another thing is, think about it. Women love compliments. Women feed off of compliments with each other. It's a great thing. Men need compliments from their significant other. Doesn't matter what your sexuality is, what your relationships are. Validation is nice at times. Now, there's narcissism, which is one thing you don't want to be around, but it's nice for people to validate you. And women should never fear of telling a man, hey, you look great. I love your clothes. I like your body. I love the sex. I love those things. Because every woman I've ever been with, those things that I'm just talking about, they like and they enjoy. If you're saying because it's true, not just to say it, a lot of people want to hear things just to make them feel good. Now I've learned that I'll look at you in the past. If you complimented me on the way I'd look, I'm like, what a fucking loser. This person's a liar. I don't want anything to do with them. So now I realize, okay, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But the reality is that's their opinion. So I've learned that I have to just really slow down the negative thoughts in my head, because then I'll interpret what anybody else says to me and it's negative no matter what it is. So that's how it's dealt with at this time.
Number 8, how has your mental health influenced your relationships with others?
It's been an amazing journey. It's brought more people into my life that are like me, more people that know what I'm dealing with and I know what they're dealing with. It's opened up the doors for work that I do. It's helped me to slow down with my own craziness. And it's been a gift. Like I tell people, I take care of myself physically. The reality is I'm blessed that God gave me the mental health issues He's given me because it's brought me into the field I'm in. It's allowed me to work in what I do. It's allowed me to become an expert at one thing, the utilization review that I love to do because I look for things nobody else will look for, because my job is to make sure who's ever coming into treatment gets as many days in treatment that they can. So I know how to do from the medical to the clinical. And people say, well, you're not a doctor. You don't need to be a doctor. You got to have common sense and a little bit of creativity. So the problems I have, they're a gift. I would I'm blessed to have them. Many things I've done in the past, horrific things in the world, horrific things to people. I have not one regret. And it's just the way it is. But what I go through on a day-to-day basis is a gift to me. Not a fun one, not one you want to keep opening, but it's a gift.
All right, number 9, what role has self-care played in your mental health journey?
Huge. Self-care, people don't realize what self-care is. For me, self-care is working out, eating properly, telling myself I did something good today. I wake up every day and the thing that's important to me is I have a purpose. What's my purpose today? I have it written. Here's my purpose. I used to have all these goals. Well, if I didn't reach the goals, pardon me while I move these. If I didn't reach the goals, then I failed. I don't have those. My anxiety is through the roof. Every morning I wake up, and when I make my first contact with clients or work, it's a beautiful day. If I let it build up, I could sit frozen in a chair for 2 hours. It's happened many times, and it happens periodically, maybe 2 or 3 times a month now, but I'm working through it. But eating right, because food affects you. What you put in your body, it makes you tired, makes you lethargic. It affects your medical condition. It affects everything about you. Sleep, I try to sleep. That's one thing that I've not been able to master. I enjoy people. I enjoy being around people, so I try to do things different nowadays. But the self-care to me, I have a regimen when I take a shower. I have facial products that I've gotten, so I do them every night before I go to bed. I do them every day. It's part of taking care of myself and feeling good about myself. And one big thing I don't do anymore, a lot of people with the eating disorders, male or female, whether you want to admit it or not, I don't really look in mirrors. I don't look at my body in the mirror, because here's the thing, mirrors are distorted. If you realize that, you stand close to a mirror, looks great. You move 10 feet away, you look like you gained weight, you look like a body part, you stare at your arms, your chest, your stomach. I don't look at myself that way. I know how I look, and I know what I look like now, and I'm proud of it, so I don't need that craziness, because if I'm looking good to me and I look in the mirror and I don't like it, my whole day's ruined. And I don't buy into, all the fitness magazines, all the different things out there that you see, the social media, because many of the people who you see in social media, many of the people you see in fitness magazines, the torture they put themselves through to look that way is horrific. So the self-care routine, it's what I do, and it works for me. That's the most important thing.
Number 10, can you talk about a time when you felt misunderstood because of your mental health?
Yes. 4 years ago, I was in a relationship with someone, and I met this person a very unconventional way on a website. And I've never said it before. It was for escorts. And you meet and you're like, here's an agreement, financial agreement, sex. And I ended up falling in love with someone for the first time in my life. The first year it was a lie. I fell in love with someone, completely lie, found out many things that weren't the truth. But then I realized, okay, that person had their issues. Now, this isn't a blame game. I'm just giving an answer. Repeat it one more time so everybody can hear.
Can you talk about a time when you felt misunderstood because of your mental health?
That is such a great question, because here's the answer. When you're dealing with someone who's just like you and who has the mental health issues, they're not going to see what your needs are. They're not going to realize that you have the problem, because they're worried about themselves. They're so involved in their own lack of terminology, medical shit. They're not going to see your needs. I had a conversation with this person once. I said, here's what I need. She's like, well, I can't give it to you. I won't give it to you. I know I can't give it to you. And in my mind, I was like, okay, well, maybe we can work on it. But I stuck around because I was a caretaker. I needed to do that. And at the same time, the reality was the person I fell in love with wasn't the real person. Now, we both met on a site for whatever our reasons were. We met for under the wrong circumstances, but we were together for a period of time for the right reasons. And we both needed something. But when you can't see beyond that, so the person didn't really recognize what I was going through, because the person went through a lot. And I realized that didn't mean she was a bad person. She had her issues. But that's when I realized that when you pick someone like you, you're never going to find any peace of mind. You're going to have to either be the person that tries to save the other person, then they'll resent you, then they'll use you, then they'll lie to you, then you're going to get angry. My most blessed gift from that was realizing that I'm okay. I don't need that validation. I don't need someone to tell me. I just need people to listen. So now I have people in my life who listen, who validate me, even if they got their own issues. They talk to me. They ask me how I am. They don't just, you ever have someone call you and say, God, I'm bored today. What are you doing? Wow, you're bored. I'm the first one you called. What a blessing, you know? Or you've ever had someone say, okay, and then that's it. Make sure you're with people who can have conversations. But then again, you don't want to be sitting around telling your story for an hour, them telling their story for an hour, and just relive the craziness. Talk about things. Get to a point. Move on. You know, you can't just sit there drudging it. You can't sit there dragging it out. But that's the situation that I was in, and I realized that if I'm going to have people in my life, it can't be circumstantial anymore. I've had so many circumstantial friendships, male and female friends. Nah, I need someone who's going to give me what I give them, and if they can't, it's fine.
Number 11, how do you balance acknowledging your mental health challenges with maintaining a positive outlook?
It's so hard. Because the reality is I know what works for me now, but I also know what felt good. I also know the sex addiction, the food addiction, the gambling addiction, the lack of better words, criminal enjoyment, the getting things over on people, making people's lives miserable because they hurt me or I perceived that they hurt me. Those things, it's such a great impact. But I didn't gain anything. I never really did. So now I'm able, when those things pop up, I spend time by myself. I'm better off not being around people. I can get a little psychotic at times. I'm very knowledgeable of it. So I realize, but the most important thing, I realize it's okay. I'm not hurting anybody. If I hurt someone, it would be myself. So I'm not hurting other people, but it's a balance. Those thoughts are going to come up every day. They do come up every day. It's just that I have better things to do. I don't need someone to know how deep things are because I know how deep they are. And you think about it, many of us think that no one cares. There are people that care. We just got to find the right people. Got to look in the right places.
Number 12, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting to navigate their own mental health issues?
I'd say the most important thing, people always talk about honesty. It's a wonderful thing, but be transparent. It's like anything. If I'm helping you, and you give me 90% of what the problem is, it's the 10% that's never going to allow us to find a solution. It's not easy to tell every little dark secret, everything that goes through your mind, everything that you're embarrassed of, everything you think someone's going to hate you for or despise you or think you're a yuck. No. If you put it all on the table, it's an amazing feeling. It's an amazing feeling. Be transparent with yourself. It's good to be transparent with others. That transparency you give yourself, because many of us just have this one thing that we don't want to say. Earlier, I said there are things I'll take to my grave. Those aren't things that affect me this way. Those are things that affect me in a different type of way. And it's okay. But the reality is, be honest what you're going through. Be honest what you feel. There's nothing wrong with saying, God, I feel abandoned. God, I feel used. God, I feel lied to. That hurt me. Here's a good example. I always love this. People talk about one-night stands. I find it interesting. Every man I've ever talked to had a one-night stand, wonders why the girl never called him. And it's supposed to be, well, guys aren't supposed to be like that. Guys are just like that. Women are like that too. One-night stands could turn into relationships. But it's always amazing. We all have the same feelings about things. We all look at things, but we're supposed to not, because you're a man, because you're a woman. You have this way to live in life, that way of living life. Different cultures say they have to do this as the man, this is the woman. And religion, we're getting into that soon. But the reality is, it's just you being honest and transparent combined. If not, that one little thing that you can't discuss, it's going to be the death of you. And I don't just mean physically, I mean mentally.
Number 13, are there any specific books, podcasts, or resources that have helped you in understanding or managing your mental health?
Not one fucking book that's been written for self-help has ever helped me. They're written by other people who deal with what you deal with. Many things are written by people who have their own issues, and I don't take away from it. If that helps you, I don't care what it is. It helps you. For me, I've read a lot of books. It's the same gibberish over and over. Podcasts, there's a lot of wonderful podcasts where people talk about things, but it's 30 things that I know. It's not like inspiring to me. There are people, you hear their story and you're like, oh, that's wonderful. So it's good to hear people's stories and know there's people like me. And I commend anybody that has them out there that works for them. But no, because here's the thing. Once you give the credit to somebody else or something else, the reality is if it goes wrong, you're going to blame somebody. You're not going to take responsibility. I've been there myself and I've seen it, the work I do. When people give so much credit to, a good example, people say AA saves their lives. AA is a bunch of words, a bunch of people that get together, got a lot of problems. It's a great organization. There's no hierarchy. There's no way of doing it other than what the 12 steps are. But when you live your life by those books written by somebody, there's a lot more to life than that. I meet so many people in the AA, they go to meetings, they have great meetings, but they're still doing what they shouldn't be doing. And there's nothing wrong with that. If it works for you, if you think it's working for you, fine. I don't take away whatever works for people. I wrote a book for myself, on how-to for me to get better, called Living Life to the Fullest, and it's just a program I wrote for me. I wrote it for me, and it worked for me. I know it'll work for other people. If people ever want to be part of it and want to know what it is, that's fine. But it's not about, it's not a book. It's more about working through life. That's how I have to do it. I still work with situations through life every day that I know are good, bad, and indifferent. But I really have never found it. There are things that are inspiring. Yes. There are, if you read things out there, there's some wonderful ones. But no, I've never read anybody's book or, I'm going to watch Tony Robbins and change my life. The man might want to change his own behind the scene. The people usually who are in the front, a lot of issues that we don't know about, but a lot of issues that come out, especially if it's the religious world.
14, how do you feel the workplace or educational settings should address mental health?
They should allow for people who are feeling down and depressed, whether it's human resource or somebody they can talk to. When they first hire them, they should let them know, look, here's our situation. If you're going through something, you need to speak to somebody. They should give them those options, make it open and honest to them so people know that, hey, I can do this. Because if you're in a situation, you're in a workplace where you feel trapped, you feel nobody cares, what's going to happen? It's going to get worse. And here's the other thing. Do you think you're going to be productive? No. They're going to hire you for something, and you're not going to do it. What's going to happen? You could lose your job. If you open it up, and the way the laws are nowadays, they really benefit people. They can't fire you if you come forward, or at least they shouldn't fire you, that you have a problem. They should help you with that problem. Because that's a disability. Whether anybody wants to understand, it's a disability. But a lot of workplaces, it's about money, 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 money. But think about this. If you don't have the capacity to work completely, be there mentally, you're not going to make that money. So find places that care about the person, because then if you care about me and I come to work for you, I'm going to give you more than you've ever bargained for. And so I think that's the most important thing. A lot of workplaces don't do that. And that's just how it is. But if you're willing to accept it, then you're part of the problem yourself rather than the solution.
15, what misconceptions about mental health do you wish to challenge or clarify?
Everybody thinks that mental health people are crazy. I have people who come in for drug and alcohol. Good example. I've had so many alcoholics tell me they're not addicts. They don't want to be in a group with a person who does crystal meth, someone who's lived on the streets, someone who does cocaine. Those are dirty. I literally have had people say this to me. An addict's an addict. Every person walking the face of this earth or hearth, whichever you want to call it, has a mental health issue. We all deal with stress. Every person's dealt with anxiety, because anxiety, it's fear. No one has not gone through a day of their life where they don't have some fear of something, the simplest thing in the world, but that creates anxiety. And the misconceptions are you don't need help. The misconceptions are you can do it alone. The misconceptions are, oh, that's bullshit. Oh, you're just saying you have that problem so you don't have to work on things, so you don't have to be present. I've been depressed my whole fucking life. You don't see me getting it. I've had people say, I never needed it. Well, I look at them like, well, have you seen yourself? Have you looked at your life? I think one of the biggest things is generational too. When you get people who are older, meaning in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s in this country, they weren't allowed to do those things. They didn't realize you could do those things. So they'll be the first to say, well, it was good enough for me. It's good enough for you. Oh, don't have excuses. There's a lot of different misconceptions. The big one is men don't have as many issues as women have. That's a big one. And they do, just to a different degree. To me, they're equal, 50-50. And that's the way I look at it. But the misconceptions are that I can do it myself. Or if someone tells you, if you go up to someone and say you have a problem, they're like, oh, don't worry about it. You can work through it. Well, how are you going to work through it? Listening to somebody? So the misconceptions just vary, but those are some ones I hear on a day-to-day. A good example, there's a lady who went into a treatment program I deal with. This just tells you about conception or perception. She had her 4th DUI. She was driving on PCH highway. She hit a guy and she killed him. Had to go to court. This was 6-7 years ago. She actually told the judge that if the guy hadn't been riding his bike on the Pacific Coast Highway, he wouldn't be dead. She took no responsibility. It was his fault. It was her 4th DUI. She was drunk as hell. But the guy had the problem. She didn't have a problem. So everybody can skewer what they want and make up it in their own head. But, if you have a problem, there are people who can help you. But always make sure you look for the right people. Don't just accept the first person you meet or read the first book and say, I saved myself, because that doesn't work that way.
16. Can you share an experience where seeking professional help made a significant difference for you?
In 1994, I was sitting in my apartment in San Francisco. I love San Francisco. I was in the depth of my eating disorder, sex addiction, not gambling because I couldn't find any places that were legal. I was sitting in my room and I was stabbing myself in my left lane. And this was right before the Northridge earthquake. I'll never forget that. And I needed help. I saw an ad on television. And I thought, damn, all that stuff is me. I called my brother and I called my family. I said, look, I need my help. My family helped find me a place. I'll never forget. I went back to Sacramento, California. I had an old little pickup that I inherited from somebody in my family. I had $35,000 that I stole from my own business. I drove up, $30,000 to $35,000. I drove up to Lake Tahoe, and I decided to play a game of Baccarat. I walked in, I had big boots untied, big baggy pants. There were holes in my pants. I had a bandana on. My hair was down past my shoulders. I had earrings. Probably looked like I come to rob the place. I went up to put my money down, and the guy said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. Well, I sat there. I lost it. They gave me $20. I got back in the car. I drove back down to Sacramento. I met my brother at a gas station, and I came to Los Angeles for treatment. And it was a moment that brought a lot of clarification. It was the first time I ever thought I needed to do something. First time I ever realized there were people like me. It was a moment.
All right, we got 4 left. 17. How do you manage the ups and downs that come with mental health issues?
It's interesting, just so everybody knows, a lot of the questions sound alike, have the same thing, but they are different, just so you know, asking the people who sent it in. It's a flow. It's accepting the fact that I do have a mental health issue. It's accepting the fact that I have behaviors around that mental health issue. So when I know I'm stressed, I know what my behaviors are. I've already done them. I've learned them. So I try to calm myself. I don't put myself in situations, as I said, being around people, because I can be very argumentative. I could be very combative. I know that off the top of my head. So why put myself in the fire when I don't need to? I've learned a good example. You go home for the holidays, stressful as hell for people. So the holidays, there's a lot of stress. So if you're going to go home, have a plan. If you can't stay with your parents, go to a hotel, stay with a friend. If you know you're going to go into the fire, but you don't have a plan. So every day I have plans for things that create anxiety for me. My work does, my interactions with people, relationships, intimate relationships, they all bring about something. So I have a plan to step back and see what it is, if it's a real one or is it something that's perceived now that happened in the past. So I have plans for the different situations I get myself in, or I know I might be in, and they work for me. They work for me. Never easy, but it works, and I still have a lot of work to do.
18. What impact has social media had on your mental health, both positively and negatively?
From a negative point of view, one of the two, no, nothing negative, because social media just has been around here, in the last, 5-10 years. That's really, and, Facebook and all the different things. I don't go to any of those places. I don't look at things for validation. I don't go to compare myself. So there's nothing negative. I see all the negative stuff there, so I know it's there. I know that people compare themselves to everybody. All the social, look at the Kardashians, what they've done. They helped create social media. They helped create to where influencers making money off of not really having talent. The ladies do have talent at what they do, not taken away, but what do? Their mother created a dynasty that's unmatched in this country when it comes to this perception and this model. A lot of people want to be like somebody else. That's a very difficult thing, because unless you give it an effort, how do you know you're going to be? So there's a lot of negatives out there that people find themselves in, but you got to take responsibility. If you're saying something's negative, like body image issues, you have so many people that get upset and say, this person looks great, this person looks great, and that person wants to be like that person. You don't know what the person put themselves through. Interesting going to OA meetings. I go to OA meetings and I'll hear women make comments about women who are skinny, and then women make comments about women who are heavy. It's like you're negating each other because you have your own issue. You can't negate what somebody else goes through. It's what they go through. So there's so many negative things that you can find. And if you have low self-esteem, if you need to get your self-worth by being part of something and others, social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it can help kill you. Look how many people in all social media have killed themselves because other people have told them how gross they are, how ugly they are, how fat they are. It's horrific, have manipulated people. Social media has some amazing things for us, but also there's such a dark side to it. And I've seen it and I know it. Different apps I've gone on for dating, you don't know who the hell you're talking to. The people will tell you what you want. People play on your weakness. When you have social media now and you have your biography on there, you have everything filled out about yourself, all anybody has to do is read that. And from the day they meet you, if it's true, they own you. It's a little much. From a positive point of view, it's allowed me to realize that I'm okay. My life has some issues, but there are people worse off than me. It's allowed me to reach more people through social media, allowed me to get my message out. I think that's a wonderful thing. I'm very happy about that. There's the great parts and the bad parts. There's just not one. The negative stuff, it doesn't do that for me because I don't compare myself to people anymore. It just doesn't work that way because I've lost years doing that. And God, it's fucking hell.
19. In what ways has your mental health journey inspired or changed you?
I realized I truly believe that we're born a certain way when it comes to our mental health. And at certain time in our life, we figure out, okay, this is who I am. Do I go this way on the tracks or do I go that way on the tracks? My mental health, as I said, it's a gift. It's allowed me to help other people. It's allowed me to help myself. It's opened up the doors. I meet some of the most amazing people, doctors, therapists, psychiatrists, researchers. Every day, the work I do, I read some of the most horrific stories about people's lives to work to help them so they get help. But it's just, my mental health has been a gift. It's been a hell. It's been a journey. It still is hell at times. It's still a journey. It'll never end. The day I say to myself, I'm fine. The day I say to myself, I've learned everything. The day I say to myself, I don't need help. That's when it's going to end. But to me, a lot of people think it's a foolish thing to say, but without it, I wouldn't be who I am today because I like me. And the most important thing, I love me now. I don't hate myself anymore at all.
And number 20. What message of hope or encouragement would you like to share with others who may be struggling with their mental health?
You're not alone. It's a simple cliche. None of us are alone. No matter how deep, dark, and bad you think it is, you're not alone. You look to your left, you look to your right, you look up, you look down, you look forward. There's someone just like you. Whether or not you want to see it, whether or not you want to engage in it, it's the truth. We are not alone. We just have to find the right place to express ourselves, the right people to express ourselves. Here's a good example. When you're in the middle of your problems, like I said about the young lady I was in a relationship with, and you have someone that has just the same issues and you're seeking something, you're not going to get it from someone who doesn't already have a good place, isn't in a good place. Many of us seek answers from people who can't give them to us. Why? Because then it allows us to stay where we're at, in our addiction, in our dysfunction, being the crazy person we are, the predator that you might be, the aggressive, violent person you might be, the horrific human being, because no one around you has told you that you're any different. You surround, and I surround, and we surround ourselves with people many times that are like us, that don't challenge us. But you're not alone. I don't care what anybody tells you, especially the fact that you tell yourself. It's not easy, it's uncomfortable, but there are people who can help you, and there are people just like you. So I think that's the most important thing, is really, if you don't believe that, very little hope that's going to happen, in my experience and for me personally. Well, that was a lot of questions.
Yeah. And thanks to the community for sending those in. I think we'll be posting those individually as well on social media. But what an episode, and just your honesty and the truthfulness and the knowledge that you've shared to help other people is really, really powerful.
Well, the beauty is, if it helps one person, great. But here's the reality of this, and people are going to say you're a narcissistic fuck. It helps me. And I know if I can help me, I can help others. So we have a phone number to call, text us. This is another episode of Living in My Mind. Appreciate you all. And whatever you have to say, your opinion counts. That's one thing you need to know. So thank you very much. Have a beautiful day.